You are listening to Spilling the Tea, a real estate podcast with Kristy Massero and Shelagh Maychek.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Spilling the Tea, a real estate podcast with your hosts, myself, Kristy, and my love her so much co-host, Shelagh Maychek.
Hello.
Today, we have the honor of interviewing a longtime agent and now author of her very own book, For the Love of Real Estate, Tales from the Trenches, Sharon Mason.
Hello there.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you here.
Yeah.
I ended up meeting Sharon for the very first time when I worked at Titus office, and that's a brokerage in Surrey. Mm-hmm. And I was only there for about 3 years, but I remember getting to talk to you a few times about real estate because you've done it for a long time. How many years have you been doing this for?
I got my license in 1984.
Okay, excellent.
Mm-hmm. You know, before technology.
Yeah, that was before I was born. I really appreciate how much knowledge you have. And I remember you told me a story. You're a very good storyteller. And you told me a story about negotiating, and it was all about who speaks first loses. He who speaks first loses. And you told me a story about sitting down with your clients and you were negotiating and there was watermelon on the table and everyone was eating watermelon and you sat with just the sounds of watermelon chewing for like 45 minutes until someone finally broke and it wasn't you. And so I try to pass this on to Shelagh because sometimes if there's uncomfortable silence, someone wants to break it. Mm-hmm. And so I always say to Shelagh, like, you ask a question and then you stop talking.
That has been probably the hardest thing for me to learn as a self-diagnosed people pleaser because I always want to just insert myself into the silence and smooth things over and make it go away. So now I hear your voice in my head after I ask a question, just say, stop talking.
Yeah. Just stop talking.
Let them go first.
Ask the question and stop talking.
Yeah.
So I read your book. I was so excited to see that you had a book, and I read it right away. I was so...
The bookmarks.
Yes. If anyone is watching, when I read a book, I use bookmarks. I use paper and a pen, and sometimes I've got highlighters, and that's how I really get into the book. Okay? So I have yours here, and I went through it with my little sticky tabs of everything that I wanted to remember and read and share with Shelagh, because sometimes, unfortunately, I pile up Shelagh with so much work she doesn't get the time. So I'll summarize things to her so that we get a good takeaway in the office.
Yeah.
And what I really liked about your book was that it's very different than what we talk about on our podcast here. Okay, because we share stories about real estate that are horrific and will really scar you to your core, where your book was really about the things that every agent should reasonably expect to encounter in their career, and it kind of gives them a polite little heads up, which I really appreciate because sometimes on our podcast we're asking questions like, what would you do if this happened, and has this ever happened to you? And sometimes the realtor goes, no, that has never happened, and it's a good little reminder that not crazy stuff doesn't happen every day. It doesn't happen every day.
Yeah.
But as you know, Sharon, the public shocks the hell out of you. Yeah, they do. They shock the hell out of you. So I really appreciate you coming today because I know that you are busy. You're an active realtor. You're awesome. Tell us a little bit about why you wanted to write a book, because everyone says, I want to write a book one day. And then you actually did it.
Right.
So we want to hear how that came about, how the idea came, and how you kind of executed it.
Well, it's really an interesting story, too, because over the years, I've had so many experiences, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful, I call it, all of the above. And I would be with clients and I would say to them, you'll never believe this transaction I'm working on and what these people did and what happened. And all through my career, people have been telling me, Sharon, you got to write a book. Yeah. You must write a book. And I've just been I was too busy. I was just like, that's not going to happen.
I'm busy handling these things.
Yeah. I'm already juggling and holding beach balls under the water and all that, you know, how we do in real estate.
Yeah.
And so finally, it was actually 2021. I was on the phone with a longtime client. She became my client in 1984 in my first year in real estate. Nice. We've become very good friends, and I just sold her place a couple of years ago and helped her move into a condo. And she said to me, Sharon, what about that book that you should be writing? when are you going to write it?
She called you out.
She
Yeah.
called me
About
out.
that
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
Well, I call it support.
Yeah.
She
True.
supported you. Yeah.
She supported me in a
Yeah.
very big way.
Nice.
And so, you know what? I kind of thought about it. And you know what? I thought, at my age, I better hurry up.
That's amazing.
You're like,
And so
better do it.
what I did was, and this could be helpful for anyone who might think that they might want to write a book about anything. I tell you, nonfiction is the way to go. Write about something that you know.
Right.
Because it only took me 6 weeks
Oh,
to
wow.
write the manuscript for this book. Because I got so much to say, I got so much to teach.
Right.
I got so much to teach. I'm a born teacher, and that's what real estate really is about, educating people about stuff so they can make wise decisions.
Yeah.
That's my view of real estate, and that you're a problem solver. So, so what I did, what I got on, and I, like you, about the podcasts, I Googled about, writing a
What
book.
do you do?
How do we do this?
And
Yeah.
I ended up taking a bunch of free webinars.
Oh, wow.
And I came to understand a lot of stuff about writing a book. One of the main things I learned was that people may have a great message and they may have a great idea and they may have a great manuscript at the end once it's all edited. But if the book isn't professional,
Right.
nobody will pay attention to it.
Yeah.
It's got to have the cover. It's got to have the acknowledgments. It's got to have the testimonials. It's got to have all the stuff in it. And that was actually harder for me to kind of get all the bits and pieces together than actually writing the manuscript.
Okay, so there's a lot more to it than just writing
Yes.
it up.
Yes, so I hired like a publishing partner, Influence Publishing, and I knew this lady who owns it, and they did a great job for me. I just love my editors so much. I mean, we went through a lot of editing of that book, and
So once you get it, there's still all these, and it's funny because it is like the podcast. Like we thought, okay, you just record it, but there's all this extra stuff, the
Other working
artwork,
pieces.
the metadata, the
Yeah.
Jeremy, like
Yes.
okay.
Yes,
That's
yes.
that's interesting. So it's a little bit of making sure you have the right people around you.
well, isn't everything?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
really.
Yeah.
I mean that
Yeah.
that's it, and so I was very fortunate. They did a beautiful. It wasn't cheap.
No.
But you get what you pay for.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
But good for you for getting started and doing as much self-learning online that you could, and just being
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna figure it out.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
Yes,
the
and-
I'm going to figure it out mentality.
I'm going to figure it. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to figure out the best way that's going to work for me.
Yeah.
And it's basically self-published, but with a professional backing.
Yeah.
So when you self-publish, you actually own the book. If you are ever, some people say lucky enough, and some people say unfortunate enough to be with an actual professional publishing company,
Right. Yeah.
they own the book. They own the rights to everything.
Right.
So that's not a big deal for me here. But I'll tell you what did become a really big deal for me is when the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board started recommending my book to all the new realtors.
Oh, that's great.
I was just going to ask you, like, who's the book for? And
Oh.
so this is pretty key because the board, no small thing here.
Right.
Yeah.
There's so many realtors that are getting their licenses every day. And I'm not saying that an experienced realtor wouldn't get a lot of value out of this either.
Oh, they
but
do.
the new ones, is this who they're putting it in front of and who they're recommending it?
Yes, there's 8 books that they recommend, and I'm honored and humbled to be in the company of people like David Chilton and Zig Ziglar.
Oh,
Yeah.
very
And like
cool.
that.
Yeah.
So, there's 8 books that they recommend, and mine is one of them. And I've heard from a lot of realtors one realtor, she's just lovely. She's read my book 4 times. She said it just changed her business because now she knew how she wanted to hold it.
Right.
How am I gonna wear this? How am I gonna live this life? Because it's a life. It's a lifestyle. It's not a job. And I say this in my book. It's not a job. It's not even a career. It's a calling.
Right.
You have to be called to it. And in our world, and I know in Kristy's too,
Yeah.
our friends become our clients, and our clients become our friends.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
And assistants.
It makes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I met Sheila. She was a client of mine, and now she's she's my right hand.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's so funny that you say that.
Yeah.
Okay, so your schedule, like you're a very busy person. You've got, like you were saying to us before we started recording, you've got family and grandkids and all that kind of stuff. When did you find time for the 6 weeks to write it?
Well, actually, my the lady who owns Influence Publishing, I met with her. She was in town. She lives in Mexico. She was in town, and we met. Oh, and I have to tell you this little piece because, it takes a lot of getting ready to put yourself out there in public like that.
Yeah.
And, spill your guts,
Yeah. Or
in,
your tea.
In
Yeah.
writing,
Yeah.
or your tea, right.
Yeah.
And you can do both at the same time.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of so making yourself so vulnerable,
Yeah.
and so that, I had a lot of personal inner doubts about it. It took me a long time to kind of go through the preliminaries of it, and most of it was me talking to myself inside my head
Right.
about all the doubts I had with it.
Yeah. The internal monologue that you got to fight through first.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Did she help you with that?
Well, what she said to me was, Sharon, you cannot ever leave the planet and take all the wisdom with you. She said, this is part of your legacy, this book.
Okay.
So as soon as she used the word legacy, I went, aha, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And the thing I so love the most about the book are the acknowledgments that I got to write.
Right.
Because I got to mention a lot of people, and I went right back through my family, right back through my grandparents and our ancestors who pioneered this country.
Right.
And because, we're all standing on someone else's shoulders.
Yeah. That's really neat. So you don't forget where you come from.
No, you don't. And those people worked so hard, and every single generation of our family has had it better than the last.
Right.
And it was all because people got educated.
Right.
It's all about education and personal growth. And so I got to acknowledge that.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
neat because
I loved it.
no one would know that unless you're telling us.
Yeah.
Because they'll think, oh, okay, you're just writing the book, and they forget about all the acknowledgments and everything that go into it.
Because it can be
Yes.
such a disservice when people kind of gatekeep knowledge. So for people it's very vulnerable, but it's such a good thing that you do when people share all the things they know.
And I really resonate with the fact that you said you're like a natural born teacher, because I do that all the time, and people look at me like I'm crazy. They're like, why are you doing that? And I'm like, because you have to. Like, why reinvent the wheel and have people struggle? You don't need to struggle. You just need to share, help out a little bit. You're not going to do the work for them.
Yeah.
But you can at least lead the horse to water and then see if they drink.
Yeah.
So when did you have time to do all of this? When was the 6 weeks that you could have crunch that in? Because I know you're really busy. You're still pumping deals out.
Something people say, oh, I don't have time. My answer is, of course you do.
Oh, yeah.
Of course you have time.
Yeah.
Okay, you might have to give up something for a little while, something that's most of a time waster.
Right.
Instead of sitting down and watching a movie, you still have to have your recreation and all that kind of stuff. But what she told me, because the book was going to need to be about 50,000 words.
Okay.
And so I got on a schedule, and I wrote, 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. And some days I wrote 1,000 words, and some days I wrote 2,000.
Wow.
And it didn't take that long to add up to. The book itself is 48,000 some odd words.
Right.
And it just accumulates. And the other thing is you just have to sit down and start writing. Even if you start out saying, I don't know what to say, I'm completely lost, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but here it goes. Okay, the other day.
I love that. And you're right, because a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of realtors who are, if they're watching or listening, sometimes that excuse is so easy to say, I don't have any time. I don't have any time. But if you were to sit down and really look at your schedule, okay.
And structure it.
It's a little bit of sacrifice, maybe here and there, like you're saying, but chances are you can find time or make time, which is awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
I love that. What's the biggest takeaway? So you're saying that a lot of new agents get this book. What do you think the biggest takeaway will be when they read it? What are you hoping their biggest thing is that they pull out of the book?
Oh, well, I just want them to know what they got themselves into.
It's a warning. It's a warning.
It's a warning because a lot of people get into real estate because they've watched too many episodes of $1 Million Listing. So, okay, right there, if you stop watching that stuff, which is not real.
Yes.
Yeah.
No,
You
it's
know,
not.
reality television is the most unreal thing on earth.
That's right.
I'm very connected with the television business, and it's all scripted. It's all
Yes.
manufactured drama. It's just pure nonsense.
And we love it. No.
And we love, well, you know what it is? It's everybody's guilty pleasure.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's not real. You're
No,
right.
it's
It is
not real. So if you gave up that, you could write a book.
Yeah.
It might take you a few months, but it's unusual to do it in 6 weeks. It's just that I have so much to say. And also, I don't edit myself. I say what I want to say, because I'll tell you something that I've learned. There's no such thing as a bad manuscript. The only bad manuscript is one that doesn't exist, because you can give any pile of words to an editor, and they'll make it into a book.
Right. Yeah.
That's what they're there
That's their
for.
magic.
And you'll pay them to do it.
Yeah. That's amazing. I love this.
Yeah, no, it's all true. You know, this business is about time. I've seen this done, you know, in a seminar 10,000 years ago. It's a big jar full of pebbles. And the guy on the stage said, "Do you think this jar is full?" And everyone went, "Yeah, it's full." He said, "Okay, watch this." And he poured sand into it and filled up the spaces. And he said, "Okay, do you think it's full now?" And they went, "Oh yeah, now it's full now." So no, it isn't. And then he poured water
Right.
into it.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the thing with time. You can always find the time. You can always find the time. People, "Oh, I haven't fixed that doorknob because I don't have time." But, "Oh yeah, let's go to that party." You know,
Yeah.
Yes.
it's all a matter of priorities.
So right now, if there is anyone who is listening to this and they say that they don't have time, there is time. There is absolutely time. So make sure that you find the time if you have a goal, because like a legacy or like the knowledge or like something you want to leave on this planet, find the time, because you don't know when your time is going to run out ultimately. Like that's what the life is almost like a game of time. So your book is very matter of fact. Like, you know, like you said, you say what you want to say, which I love, because I'm a lot like that as well, which is probably why you and I get along so darn well.
Yeah, right.
So what I really loved about it is that we had a situation in your book where you're talking about, and this really resonated with me, because you were talking about a gentleman that you used to see at the restaurant, and it was like, I think he might have been a client or someone who used to talk to about real estate, and then one day he wasn't around anymore. And so I'll share a story after, but I'm kind of wondering, like, you know, through life, if you've done real estate that long, there's going to be clients that eventually move away. And how do you kind of seek your peace with that if suddenly you don't know where they've gone, or because you're almost having to let them go a little bit?
Yes.
And this man you actually wrote about. So I was curious as to like kind of how that sits with you, especially on an emotional level.
Yes. Well, you know, that's a very good question, and not only, you know, after my many years in real estate, many of my clients have died,
Right.
and that's another one. And when I was writing this book, I was in tears.
Ah.
I was
Sorry
in
if I'm
tears.
upsetting you, by the way.
No, you're not
Okay.
upsetting me at all.
I was like,
and
damn.
you know what? Around me, anything is a okay to cry zone.
Okay.
It's all fine. But, you know, truly, there's so much emotion involved. And when you really care,
Yeah.
you know, then, because this man, I mean, he was a client. I sold him at least half a dozen houses I helped him buy.
Right.
And I knew what he wanted. We met at an open house. He said to me, it was Peter Lee, and he said to me, "I really like you, and I'm going to tell you what I want, and you see a house that's like what I want, you call me, I'll buy it, and you can always find me at the White Spot every day at 3:00 having pie and coffee."
Oh my goodness.
What a
That's so
great
specific.
life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pie and coffee at 3:00.
At
Yeah.
3:00,
Right.
and so that was Peter, and I would go down there, and I did this last time we did a deal. I went down and found him there, and I said, "Okay, I just listed a house. It's your house. It's got hardwood floors, French doors, you know,
Yeah.
good solid old house with a good furnace and a hot water tank.
Yeah.
Good roof."
So when agents go to list a house and they're like, "I have a buyer for your product," you actually had a buyer for the product.
I knew I did.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah, no, that's right. And and I have another story in the book which is really interesting. Is the lady who encouraged me to write my book by saying, "When are you going to write that book?" And She's in the book too. It's Lorraine McCloy.
Okay.
And Lorraine, I lost touch with her. I completely lost touch with her at one point. And how she found me was I'd done an open house at a townhouse, and one of the neighbors had the page and said to her, when you sell your house, you should buy this. You should buy here, and we'll be neighbors. And my friend Lorraine, she looked at me, she went, oh my God, it's Sharon. And her friend goes, who? Who?
That's cool. 'Cause
Sharon?
that's very like universe coming
universe
back.
coming around.
Yes.
And she says, Sharon, she's my realtor. I need her.
Yeah.
And the next day she called me, and I saw her name on my call display on my phone.
Right.
And my body just turned into one giant goosebump. I just have to say.
That's awesome.
But I've got a lot of happy stories in my book.
Of course, yes, and I'll share about Nola really quickly. There was a woman that I had met. This man came into the mall. You know, remember when Home Life used to have the kiosk at Guilford Mall?
Yes.
So I used to go there and sit, and this man came up to me, and he goes, and he talks to me. He goes, well, I like you. I'd like you to come meet my mom, and it's in a condo. It's like a ground floor unit, and I'm sitting there going like, this guy's probably weird. You know, like, please don't murder me. So I went. I had the office call me partway through to make sure that I wasn't dead.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
I went and I met this little old lady, and she was so sweet. And I would sit during the showings because she was almost like a little bit too old to kind of ask to leave during the showings. So I used to sit at the table with her while the showing was happening, and we would have coffee or tea. And I swear she was like my best friend in a different life. We got along so well. She ended up moving away, and I really like made my peace with the fact that I'm probably never going to see her again. And she ended up calling me a couple months later, and after I got off the phone, I burst into tears because I just loved her so much. Yeah. And then so she would call me every couple months, and you could kind of tell that she was getting a little older and a little older. And then one day the phone call stopped. And I finally Googled her name, and I saw her obituary picture, and I cried. I cried because I just fall in love with them. I fall in love with my clients sometimes. So when you had that story, I thought about that. So it was interesting. And then the other part that I really, really want to talk to you about, because I always go back to this in my podcast, is about core values. Yes. Again, this is another reason, like, you are legitimate because you are all about your core values. And when I think about new agents reading this book, or any agent, the biggest thing that I think they're going to get out of it is the fact that you have to have good core values. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes, but once you're clear on what your values are, making decisions is so easy.
Yes.
It's so easy because you do this and you don't do that, period. And there's a line in the sand. I'm so black and white about what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah.
And it can be subtle. It can be subtle to always do what's right.
Yes.
And that's what agency is all about. And I say, I treat your transaction exactly as if it were my own.
Right.
And one thing I used to have in my pre-listing kit was the truth, the whole truth. Oh, I will always tell you the truth. It may not be what you want to hear, but I will tell you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Cross my heart and hope to help you move.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's so great.
So I say a
Like
lot of
there's an
these
echo.
things. I know there's
Yeah,
an echo
yeah,
in here because
yeah.
this is how I go into my appointments. I say, listen, you might not like what I tell you,
Yeah.
but I'm going to tell you.
I'm
So-
telling you. Well, and something that I have said to people is, now, let's get this straight before we start talking about your house and moving and your, money and all that stuff. I need to know something. Do you want me to tell you the truth, or do you want me to lie? Because I can do either. If I tell the truth, you're going to hate me now, and if I
Yeah. If I lie, you're going to hate me later.
you're going to hate me later.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what would you? And people are so funny, and they laugh and they say, oh Sharon, please lie to us, please
Yeah.
lie to us,
Yeah.
and no, they say no, we want the truth. I say, well, good for you.
Do you ever have anyone that asks you for the gray area? Like, does that ever, or do you just make your core values so clear up front that it doesn't ever get there?
Yeah, no. I, like a seller who doesn't want you to disclose that the roof leaks. Well, we're not allowed to even take
Do
that. I
that.
wouldn't even take that listing. I wouldn't
Yeah.
work with that person, because if they're going to try to cheat the buyer, they're going to try to cheat me.
Yeah.
The way people do anything is the way they do everything.
Yeah. That's right.
Isn't that the truth, though? And once we accept that about people, then life gets easier, because
Yeah.
it's easy to make that decision.
Because you recognize it and you go, aha, not working with you.
No.
Yeah, not
Moving
today.
on.
Yeah.
And if somebody doesn't trust me, then I immediately know I can't trust them,
Yeah, that's right.
because life is a mirror.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, there's so many good things in this episode. I want to like write down all the good lines in this episode. They're so good. So these days, especially people-pleasing agents, especially new agents, are so terrified of a bad Google review. Like that seems to really, like I know agents that I talk to that are just like, oh, I wouldn't want to upset that person because what if they leave me a bad Google review?
Yeah. What if they don't like what I said?
Yeah, what if my client's not 100% happy with me, even if it's a gray area or whatever, but they're so concerned about public perception with the internet, because of course that's just like a thing now. How do you find that? Like, what would your advice be to agents that are so afraid of that negative review if their client isn't perfectly happy?
Gosh, that's a really really good question.
Yeah.
The whole thing, of course, is that nobody's perfect.
Right.
I years ago there was a lovely man in Ladner who was a notary, and we got him to do our wills the first time. How you redo them 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
And we got him, and when we first met with him, he said to us, "I want you to know that I'm not perfect. I might make a mistake. And if I do, I want you to tell me right away, and I'll fix it. I want you to be happy." Usually, I think if people give bad reviews, it's because the problem never got solved.
Right.
I go towards problems. If I know somebody's upset, and I have stories in my book like this, okay, where are you? I'm coming right over.
Right.
Because you have to deal with it. You have to move toward the problem. And the real key is that you have to listen to them until they're through venting.
Right. Listen
Yeah.
first. Well,
Yes.
it's like
Don't just dive in trying
well,
to solve the problem when they're
seek-
not done.
No.
seek to understand and then be understood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's something that we
Yes.
try to live by. Like seek first to understand, then be understood.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
if you don't listen, you can't solve it.
Yeah.
No, you
Yeah.
can't.
Okay.
So what you're
And be
saying
brave.
is you're feeling like this because that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And I, one thing I learned, which is really helpful, and this in relationships or anything, somebody's, really venting about something, and you say, okay, first of all, I want you to tell me everything that's bugging you. I mean everything. Don't hold back. And I'm going to listen. And when you're done, then I'm going to ask you to listen to me. And invariably, when they finish venting, and I say to them, okay, are you done? Yes. Are you sure? Yes. And then I start talking, and they interrupt me, and I say, oh, you weren't done.
Oh yeah.
And I make them go back and talk more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I make them go back and talk. And I've had people say to me, I'm so glad that you came and did this with me.
Right.
And one lady said to me, I really learned a lot about dealing with conflict.
Right.
And so, it's all about personal growth. It's all about don't take it personally. And, the other one that's so important is detaching from outcomes. That's the hard one.
Yes, we share this a lot with newer agents. They have to
Yes.
stop
Yeah.
caring about the outcome.
Detach.
Yeah.
Don't waste your...
They're so wrapped up in what is going to be the end result instead of the
Yes.
process, because
Yeah.
deals might not come together.
No.
Like, might not be the right home. Something might come up on inspection. You've got to just release it and be like, okay, on to the next thing.
If you accept that you're okay with a deal coming together or not coming together, it's so much easier to make the right decision.
Yes.
Because you notice that if someone is so attached to the outcome, maybe there's some gray areas that sneak in so that they get their outcome that they want. And I hate that. Like because people, and it's tough because this business is so hard to get into and the bills pile up. And of course, your bills are staring at you and you want to get the house together. And maybe you've never had a deal fall apart. So you
Yeah.
think there's some kind of magical reputation out there. Deals fall apart. It's okay. But it's better to have fiduciary duty to your client. It's not about you. And that as soon as ego goes out of the equation, I feel like that's where peace is found.
Yeah.
Yes.
But That's my
Yes.
outlook on it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I'm a big believer in what Stephen Covey taught in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of my favorites is always begin with the end in mind. And I talk about that in my book too.
Yeah.
Begin with the end in mind. And so often I've sat down with people who we met to talk about buying, or we met for talk about listing or whatever it is. And I tell them, I'm not really here to help you buy a house. I'm here to help you buy or help you sell. But what I'm really here for is to start a conversation where you will always be comfortable to call me.
Right.
You will always be comfortable to tell me you're not happy with something. Because we have to tell each other everything.
Yeah.
In this. It's the only way that it works. That's the only way that anything works. And so, so the other thing I'm here for is so that you will be comfortable sending me referrals.
Yeah. See that?
That's the one.
Are you listening,
People
agents?
better be listening.
Yeah.
You got to be listening.
Yeah, I'm here for the long haul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have clients now that I've been working with since the 1980s. I mean, they're still alive, and so am I.
There's an
You know.
asterisk there. Yeah.
You know.
Everyone is still alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's long term. It's a long haul, and the longest I've ever kept in touch with somebody before they listed with me was 12 years.
Oh, wow.
Who does that?
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah.
And you.
Yeah. We do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do that because it's just a matter of, what are you focused on? Are you focused on doing a deal and getting money, or are you focused on really serving people, being in service, and
Building the relationship.
Building the relationship for the future. Because most of our clients, once we start working together, we can do anywhere from 4 deals to 11 or 12 deals
That's
with
right.
one family.
Yeah.
And if you're not taking care of that part of it, you're just going to do one deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's transactional versus relational.
Relational.
And I tell people that when I meet them, I say, I'm not working on the deal with you. I'm working on the deal that you're hopefully going to refer me to because you're so happy.
Yes.
And
yes.
and I think that if that's, and there are some realtors out there that they don't want that. They just want to do the transaction and move on.
Yeah.
And that's a different style of real estate. It's not our style.
No, not mine.
But it's a different style. And I'm definitely more of a relational kind of girl.
Yeah.
So I've got 2 more questions for you. I hope that's okay.
Sure.
This we talk about this sometimes. Do you ever plan on retiring from real estate?
Oh, that's really easy. No.
Okay, so
no.
this is a debate because I'm around a lot of guys and they say I plan on retiring in 10 years or 20 years. I want to be out of the real estate game, and I want to go 10 toes up. I don't ever want to give my license up. Sheila and I talk about being older,
We want to be on the same porch, and we'll be talking about the deal that we're doing that day.
Yes, on the same porch in our rocking chairs.
Yeah.
And just riling up people as they come in the open house.
Yes.
And go see the house. We're too old.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be amazing. And you don't plan on it either because, like you said, it's a lifestyle, right?
Oh, it's totally a lifestyle,
Yeah.
and we work with people of all ages.
Yeah.
And my husband and I work together.
Yeah.
And he used to be licensed, but now he claims he works for me. And I sometimes I think it's the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I told him, "You're never getting fired because I'll never find anybody who will work so cheap."
Oh yeah. That's perfect.
That's a good
So-
point.
Yeah.
I love it.
So,
Okay, last question. If somebody wants to buy a copy of your book, what is the best place? And I do recommend this, guys. It is a great book. I have read it. Where can they go to buy it?
well, they can get it on Amazon.
Okay.
They can go to my website, SharonMasonRealEstate.com.
Okay.
And then we'll send out a copy to them.
Very cool.
And either way is good. And this book is also, I've had a lot of civilians, that's what I call people who aren't realtors and have never
They're out of
been
the game.
realtors.
Yeah.
They're civilians.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have read the book, and they just loved it.
Good.
And thought it was like a book really about success.
Yeah.
About success, because it's the same in anything.
Yes, that's
anything
right.
you're doing in life, it's the journey that you're on, and this is part memoir and part industry guide.
Okay, I love that. So even if you're like
Yes.
a professional or maybe just love real estate,
Yeah.
pick up a copy. and I don't typically recommend books, but I love this book. I definitely am going to talk to the office about bringing in copies for our library, because they're so good. Our Wollstonecroft office brings in books that agents could be reading.
Yes.
And I do teach a boot camp, and I definitely mention it there as well. So we really appreciate you coming out today. Oh
Yes.
my
Oh,
goodness.
well,
so
you know
enjoyable.
what? This was so much fun. And of course, I've just loved Kristy from the day we met.
Yeah.
And she's like a daughter of the heart for me.
Yeah.
And then I got to meet you, Sheila.
Yeah.
And what a wonderful pair you are. And I know that you're helping a lot of people.
We are.
And the most important thing in life is their home.
Yeah, I agree.
That is the most important thing for any of us.
Yeah.
And so it's a high calling.
Yeah,
It's
that we
teaching
have
and educating
to
and having
help.
fun at the same time.
Yeah, we have
Yeah,
fun.
lots and
Yeah.
lots and lots of fun.
Yeah.
Okay, well, cheers, everyone. That's it.
cheers.
Oh my goodness,
That was lovely.
It was a
Thank
quick half an
you.
hour.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Spilling the Tea, a real estate podcast with Kristy Massero and Shelagh Mason.